Yeah, hi guys, Abhishek here. I hope you all can hear me. We'll start with the session now. The course content which we have decided for today, the Java session 6, is with interfaces and packages. Okay, and I hope that uh, the PDF is visible to you all. Okay, so so we are dealing with interfaces and packages today. Now, what are interfaces and packages?
No, it's a package. 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 No, it's a package.
Okay, there's some echo problem there. So interfaces and packages. What are packages? So let's go back to a practical example here and see what options do you get. So if you see my screen, you'll see an option of new uh, package and new class. So say if I want to create a new class, even like say employee, right? If I want to create a new class, you'll see various options which are out there. Say modifiers. You can say whether the class is public or final, or whatever it is. Whether it's abstract, which class it extends, what is the interface, and apart from that, there is one more thing which is there at the top, and which pretty much sits here is package. So the default is empty. Okay, so it expects a package name. So what exactly is a package? So package is something which, as the name suggests, it packages things together. Okay, so package is supposed to package the classes together. So there are various ways. Say uh, it's a big application, right? Like say it's a registration application. So what you do is that for this particular class, or maybe for the entire H2K batch, you're writing a program where you take all the user inputs, all the student details, and store it in the database. And then depending on whether your role is admin or whether your role is self, you can also log in and see your details, the classes you have attended, the classes you have not attended. The same place you can see all the places, all the recordings. So all this thing is possible, right? Now if all of us are working on the same stuff, right, and write similar classes, because say there can be one class uh, which is there in the web layer, the program which deals with the contents which just came in from the web, and then there is a second layer which deals only with the database. So what happens is that in these two layers you can find exactly the same classes as well, right? So there are chances of clashes. So what we do is that we package the classes together and we give to the people who work on it, and then they can use it and import our classes and use it properly. So in that way the name clashes will not be there. So how is it possible? Like say if I go here and define my own package, right? So let's say new package, and the name is say employee. So if I do that, sorry, employee is not the, I wanted to the name of the class. So if I do that, I go here, name package, and let it be com dot test. Okay, so if that is the case, if I put the package name as com dot test, then I can go here and say, like, I can click on this particular package, go and click like new class, the value can be employee. Okay, and then done with it. Now if you see, I have an employee class, and the first line which is here is package test. This is a package information. It means that this particular class belongs to com.test package. Now I don't know whether it has been compiled or it should be compiled. So if I try to find it using Control Shift T, I can see all the classes which is there. See, now this is the actual class which they are showing. Okay, and if you see com.test, so say if I write another package and this package is not com.test, it is say, just for an example, let's say some other package, say com dot data access layer, DAO, data access object layer. Now if that is the case and I want to define say employee DAO, right? So if I want to define a class employee DAO, and I want to use this employee class here, how to use it? Say for an example, I'm writing a main method here, or maybe not a main method, I'm just writing a public void update employee method. Okay, I'm expecting a employee object here, right, in the parameters. So if that is the case, I will write employee here, employee emp. So this is a reference data type which is referring to employee class. Now if you see, if you here is an example, employee, I mean here's an error. Employee cannot be resolved to a type. Why this is so? Because the packages whatever we create affects visibility also. So the classes are there in a different package. You need to import those classes, okay, and the package statement has to be first. The second statement has to be all those import statements which are required in the program. So what do? I will go here and put import employee, right? So it should work fine. But if you go back and see import employee, it's not going to work. Why? Because saying employee cannot be resolved. Why? Because when you import the actual classes, okay, and there is a concept called as fully qualified class name. What that means is that in this particular case, the actual class name would be com.test.employee. Okay, fully qualified class name. So what is fully qualified class name? The package name will be there in the front, okay, and then there would be dot, then there would be class name. So that is a fully qualified class name, okay. So you can only import via fully qualified class names. So in this case, what is the package name? Com dot test, okay, dot, what is the class name? Employee. This is how you have to use your import statement, com dot test dot employee. Now the thing is, this is how the classes are named, and this is how you can refer to those classes. All right, and I'm saying this because I mean, say, let's come out here. Now here I can go ahead, not in this one. I can go ahead and put employee com dot test dot employee, right? Now I have this. Now here I have an update employee method, and I can use it, right, because this employee object has a reference here. We're able to import it. So this helps in, say, setting the visibility as well packages, that different packages can have different, different classes can be grouped in different packages, and then only when you require it you can actually import it, but otherwise those classes are not visible within the piece of code which you're writing. So even if you go back and there are pieces of code which say is being used is being clashing in the name or has different implementations, because say employee class here can have a different implementation. It can have only one attribute, private string, yeah, employee name, but maybe once you go into the DO layer, it can have many attributes. The employee object here can have employee name, first name, last name. Why? Because that is required there. Maybe employee name has to be broken down into two pieces. From the UI, you accept two parameters, Abhishek and then Singh. Now those two parameters has to be accepted on the has to be broken down while before saving the actual string in the database, and that is being taken care of by the employee object, which will write in com.do. So there has to be a difference, and if the visibility is not hidden, then you'll have problems, because depending on the class path or the class path loader, any particular class can be used, and that is going to create a lot of confusion. So that's why we have this package visibility rule. Okay, now say I do not want to write an import. Is there a way out? Yes, there is a way out. What is a way out? Way out is always the same. You always use a fully qualified class name. Say if I remove it, all right, now we have it here. How do we do it? I will write the fully qualified class name here to be used for the reference data type, and if that is the case, see, the error will go away. Got it? Now let's go back here. So going back, That was about packages. And then what about interfaces? So we'll deal about interfaces, but let's first deal with packages first, because packages are like deal with whatever you have already dealt with. Okay. Classes, it deals with classes. So packages are Java's way of grouping a number of related classes and slash or interfaces together into a single unit. That means packages acts as a container for classes. This is what we discussed right now. And the benefits are the classes contained in the packages of other programs and applications can be reused. In packages, classes can be unique compared with classes in other packages. That two classes in two different packages can have the same name, such as employee, which I was discussing. If there is a naming clash, then classes can be accessed with their fully qualified name. Classes and packages can be hidden if you don't want other packages to access them. And then these are 6 foundation Java packages. We'll discuss about them. And then packages are organized in a hierarchical structure. For example, a package named Java contains a package named EWT. So what is meant here is, like, say if I go here and see this package structure, right? So what is the package structure here? com.do, com.test. What this means? This means that there is one high level package com, and inside that we have two levels. One is test, right? And the other one is do. Similarly, you can add others. Similarly, you can have, like, say com.do, and inside do I have, say, com.do.employee layer, maybe registration, another thing which is there is registration. So you can have such distinctions. So in this case is, what will be my package structure? So my package structure will be com.do.employee, right? And here in this case, what will be the structure? I'm sorry about the spelling here. com.do.registration. Okay, so this is possible. So this is how we organize, and this is what we mean by hierarchical structure. Okay, now let's go back here. So what we have out next. So accessing classes from packages. This is what we discussed. There are two ways. Either you import it in the top as I showed in the example, or you write the fully qualified class name. Okay, and you can do all the work using fully qualified class name, like the one which is explained here. And the import statement can be written using, like, say package.class, and this is the wildcard statement, and I'll explain you what is the wildcard statement. So say uh, everything which is out there in com.test package, you want it to be imported in com.do. So what's the way out? What can I do? I can go and write all the things independently. Okay, so you may be experience you may have to import things differently. So let's say apart from employee, I have another class, say uh, admin. Okay, so I have admin here. What next? So if these two things are there, I want to import it. What is the way out? The way out is, I'll go here, I'll add import statement, right? So to resolve imports, Eclipse gives you a very good option. So you click on Control, Shift, and O, and it does most of the work from its side. And wherever it's confusion, a pop-up will come up, which shows which are the various import statements and like which thing you actually want to import for each and everything. Okay, so in that case, you can go ahead and choose the correct one. So say for example, if I remove this and create another package, okay, and the package name is, say, for com.test1. Okay, and com.test1 is just for an example, and I add another class here which is employee. Okay, now there are two classes, there are two different packages, the same employee name is present there. Now if you go here in employee do and do a Control Shift O, Java gives you an option, because Java as such or Eclipse as such doesn't know that which class you want to use. So it gives an option of whether using com.test.employee or com.test1.employee. Okay, and then depending on your requirement, you can choose it. So this is how your import statement works. So you have to write it independently. Import dot com dot test dot test1 dot employee. Okay, so this is how you can do it. Now And this, where this is getting an error, this is getting an error because it collides another import statement. Okay, fine. So this is how you can do it. So you have to write com.test.employee com.test1, and the same class name can't be imported twice. So that is the deal. I think this should work fine. Yeah. So if you see here, what I've used is a wildcard parameter. Now what that means is all the classes in com.test1 package, okay, that has to be imported. Now say if this particular package com.test1 has 1,000 classes, and you need 900 classes from there. Now you can, but it becomes very cumbersome to import all of them individually. So in such cases, sometimes we do like star. But ideally, if you require 1 or 2 or 5 or 10 classes, it's recommended that you don't use import statements like this. You write the name of the actual classes. Okay. Now let's go back to the thing. Now if I see here, what do I have? Uh, See, import jar.lang.star. This is implicit in all the statements. Now what that means? That means is that import.java.lang. Now every important class the Java has written for your basic use is there in java.lang package. Okay, so like say I have output stream, right? So if you go and search for output stream, I think I'm not able to search here, but if I go and search for output stream, okay, this is java.io, but say uh, go here, you can see all the classes here as well. Like say if I do import java.lang, okay, now you see the classes dot c, all these classes boolean. This is a wrapper class which we discussed, byte, character. So these are the not the primitive data types, but the actual wrapper classes which we provide by default. Java provides by default. So those things, long, math, whatever is required for our normal usage, most of the stuff like runtime exception, etc., is there in java.lang package. And this you need not import by default. Okay, if you like, this is by explicit in everything. So that's how you can use it. Now, package statements, as we saw, was the first statement to appear in the program. You, while creating a package, you have to use this. You have to define it like this: package com.do or whatever. And say even if the package is not there, and that is the first class which you're writing, you can do it using com.do. But if you're working from say command line, you have the option that once you go into a particular folder, you can say package com.do, and then create that package. So Java will create that package for you independently as well, and that is working from command line. And for that, Java gives you this package statement which you can use obviously. Anyways, Java supports a keyword called package for creating user defined packages. The package statement must be the first statement in a Java source file, okay, followed by one or more classes. So we have package statements, and we have import statements, and we have the actual class bodies, and this is what we saw in the example as well. Now, as packages in Java are organized hierarchically, sub-packages, as I showed you about com.test, com.test1, that's how it is created. So one package will have my package.math, and the second one, if you have my package, then put my package.second package.third package, which is same as what we discussed here, com.do.employee, com.do.registration. Alright, so let's go back here. What are access modifiers? So we saw in our example as well, whatever was out in this particular case, that employee do class was not able to access employee, right? So employee do was having problems accessing employees, and the reason behind what that was, there are visibility issues. So this particular class which is out here, and let's come to test one, we can just delete this particular package, okay, for simplicity. Now say if we have employee, now we have computer test package. So here this employee do will try to like this is importing here. Now say we have to import it specifically, right? What is the reason behind it? Like what will happen if I do not if I import it? This is how it is, right? Now why it is not accessible outside? Because by default like whatever we write, the classes, etc., are only visible within their package, so component test. So if you need it outside the package, you have to use the import statement, okay, and now the import statement has to be used, so you can use it. So there are various access modifiers as well, I think, which we have discussed before. So public means it can be accessed from other packages as well, but that doesn't mean that it will be accessed without giving those import statements. Those import statements are necessary, they are required, okay. But unless you say that this class can be visible outside this package, you can't even import it, okay. So to prove that point, let's say I mark this class as private, okay. So what's going to happen? So if you mark this as private, and marking this is it's giving you error because only public abstract is present, because this private thing you have to give like a subclass. So say for example I have this public, in the same class as the like inner class, you can define another class private. So if, just for an example, like let's take here this that is about inner classes which we'll discuss. So say private is there, okay. Now if private is there, what will happen is that this employee, even if the import statement is there, it's not visible to it. See, the type com.test.employee is not visible, so in that case you can't import, okay. What about say if it is protected? Again the same thing will come, because one public class has to be there in one particular file, okay, and you can have other private, protected, other such stuff. Even if you write protected, what will that mean? That means that this thing is only accessible within this package, okay. So in that case, if you go back to employee or do, it should have problem here as well. Again, the thing is not visible. Why? Because this is outside the package. So you see, if I mark it as public, what will happen? The errors which is there will go away, okay. So that's what it is all about. So the package, that classes in a particular package are visible in that same package itself, okay. Now, for a public class to be visible outside the package, we need to import it, okay. Protected and private classes cannot be visible outside their own package. This is the basic concept which we discussed and I showed to you right now. Now let's go through what is written out here. All classes or interfaces are accessible to all others in the same package. Classes declared public in one package is accessible within another. Non-public class is not. Members of a class are accessible from different class as long as they are as long as they are not private. Protected members of a class in a package are accessible to subclasses in a different class. Or say a subclass in a different package, it actually means it's a small typo error from me. What it means is that I explained you here, right? Like say this thing, if I mark as protected, this will not be visible here, all right. But if it's a subclass, if you see here what is written out here, so protected members of a class in a package, okay, are accessible to subclasses in a different package. So say employee, okay. Now here this thing I mark it as protected, so ideally this should not be visible. Now with whatever I told in this particular in this particular package will be present, but say if I have another package structure, say com dot test1, and here I have say super employee, all right. So if super employee is there, and it extends employee, so if that is the case, and say I have a method, again the same method which I am trying to override, okay. I'll just add here the getter and setter methods, which will add get method and set method for this particular employee emp name attribute. So if that is the case, I come here, and remember this emp name which was out there is protected, okay. So if I come here and say you write a method, say public void, or maybe public double get salary, right. So if that is the case and I'm expecting an employee, not employee but that's it, because this is itself an employee object, and I do this dot, you see emp name, this thing, this yellow mark which is there on the left, this means that this is visible only in protected mode, and ideally it should not have been available here. Why? See, if I remove this is an employee name and just printing it, that is my whole job, to print it out. Just for an example, let's be the case, and let's mark the return type as void. Commences out and then you have this dot get name. Okay, so we are visible, but this is private anyways, this method. If you go back and see, for every private method to access it, we are protected. We are creating public method. So get emp name, set emp name is anyways valid, so there is no problem with that. But what if this is marked as sorry, not this one. What if this is marked as private? And before doing that, let's go back here and check with this dot. Emp name is also visible, right? Now let's go here and see. This is private protected, so this is accessible. So if I remove this, so the super employee doesn't extend employee anymore. What will happen? See the error. And what is the error? It cannot be resolved or is not a field. And why is that so? Because with the protected members, the deal is that it has to be accessed in the same package, or it has to be accessed from the subclass, maybe in a different package. And this was earlier a subclass, so we are able to access it. But right now, since we have removed that extends employee, we are not able to access it. So if you have it, this error will go away. So that is what is explained in this particular line, where I was talking about protected members of class are visible within the class, subclasses, and also within all classes that are in the same package as that class. Okay. Now, when packages are developed by different organizations, it is possible that multiple packages will have classes with the same name, leading to name classing. Answer is to use fully qualified classing, which we have already discussed. So this is all about packages. All right. Now, the second thing which we want to discuss is about interfaces. Let's go above what all we have for interfaces. So what exactly is an interface, right? So say how to create an interface. Say for example, I go to a particular package com.test, and every employee has to bind to a particular contract, not with the contract, with the actual contract which you have heard in the day-to-day life, but think it from programming perspective. So every employee class has to expose methods to calculate salary. Okay, because if that is not the case, then I mean the other classes, maybe there is a different team which works on the salary module. They'll not be able to calculate salary by themselves and store that in the database, or maybe return to a admin module functionality, right? The scenario which we're discussing here is like, just for simplicity, I'll list it down here. Admin is there, all right. Then there is another module which is say sales. Then there is another module which is say HR, okay. And then the another module which is like say web module. So there are various modules which are there in the same in the same application. And then there's a DAO team which works on the DAO layer. So the DAO team expects that whenever it calls emp dot calculate salary, it should get details, okay. And only then it will be able to refer to the calls which comes from admin. So the call is that from admin layer you get a call to the DAO layer to get the details of calculating salary, and DAO layer in turn contacts the web layer where we have the employee class. And if that is a class, every employee class has to have calculate salary, right? So that is a contract. So all the employees needs to have this calculate salary method, and that is required. Now, how can we do this? We can do this on the basis of what we do in our day-to-day life. We can just assume that this is how it will happen. Every class has to implement it, okay. And if by tomorrow you write some super employee or maybe something else, some other like say some other super classes, or maybe some other super employee classes which also has to have the calculated salary, and forget to extend employee, okay. Now what will happen? So obviously the error is there, but thing is that there are chances that maybe if there are different classes which like different types of classes which implement it, there's going to be problems. What I mean to say is uh, like say IDO, right? Or say I employees. So there are different types of employees, and there's an interface which has calculate salary method. So if you have calculate salary method and you have an interface I employee, every employee object, like say employee implements I employee. So it has to implement this particular contract. So this is one way. Okay. Now what is the second way? So the second way is so the second So second way is like, say if I write another class and it's not actually an employee, okay, but say it is a contractor, okay. Say it also implements I employee. Why? Because for every contractor I needs the salary thing, right? So I've written a contract, and this has to be implemented by all the classes where it's required, which in my cases it's like this, okay. So if this is the case, now all these things have to implement I employee. So what that essentially means is that they all have to provide an implementation for calculate salary. So we can have different implementations for the calculate salary depending on whether it is employee, whether it is contractor, and whether it is subcontractor. And how is that possible? Using inheritance. So using interfaces, and interfaces are nothing but contracts. So what we have said here is that using this particular contract, right, whichever is a similar type of object, they have to implement this method, and then it will be taken care of. So this is provided so that, like say, all the we needed to calculate salary from the admin department, right, from the DA layer code. Now that layer of code needs some sort of confirmation, some sorts of guarantee that whichever is the class, they'll always have this calculate salary thing. And how did it enforce it? How did we enforce in the programming world? We added this implements employee, and that made sure that you have some sort of food there. And when you're writing it, it is ensured. So it's a sort of guarantee. From the programming perspective, you can think it like that. It's a sort of guaranteed sort of contract which every class has to implement, okay. Now say if I go here and I actually create, say, I employee, right. In this I have marked taken as classes, but if you go right click new, then you'll have interface. You can select that and say I employee. All the methods in interface by default are public, okay. So public, say double calculate salary, okay. And the only thing which I'm expecting is int designation number. If that is the case, then every class which implements I employee has to provide an implementation of this, say employee class. Right now we don't have uh, any calculate salary API. And why was it so? Because we had not written it. Even though, like, say this was a requirement in the application which we had to design, we there are chances that we could have forgotten it, provided implementations which are not compatible, use data types which are not int, maybe say string. They're not written in double. They're just not returning anything which is void. So in that case, there are various possibilities to limit that, to guarantee that we maintain the sanity of the application. We expect the input in a certain way, and we return the output in the way in which it was decided before. We have interfaces where there is a definition, and all the classes which implement this has to adhere to this particular definition, okay. So if I add implements employee, what's going to happen? Implements I employee. Now you will see an error. Why? Because I employee is an interface. It has a method, and which interface is sort of guarantee a contract that you have to adhere to the contract. The contract is whatever I have defined in this particular interface. I have told that this is a salary method. Everyone who is implementing me has to implement it. And since employee class is not doing so, we are getting this error. So for this, click on this one. It will there is an option of add unimplemented methods. Once you click it, it just adds a skeleton version here, and then you can write the actual code. All right, you can write the actual code here. So once you write the actual code, this is going to work out fine, okay. And similarly, employee, subcontractor, contractor, visual classes you create, they all have to implement I employee and provide their own implementation of calculate salary. So this way, say we have adhered to a common standard, and we have also enforced that every class, depending on its need, whether it's a permanent employee, full-time employee, whether it's a contractor, whether it's a subcontractor, we have the exact details and the salary is calculated depending on those scenarios itself. So interface gives us the flexibility to implement such concepts, such scenarios. Okay, so let's go back here and see what all we have here to discuss. Interface is a contract which we discussed, which the implementing class has to satisfy. This is used to define the structure of the APIs and let the client, internal or external, use the method definitions to complete their coding. When I say internal or external, when I say internal, I mean the classes from within the same application. Maybe they're in different package. Maybe one class is there in com.test.1, the other one is called com.do. So these are like still internal, right? Because they're in the same application. So the thing is that right now we're not discussing it, but slowly you'll see that I've created one project training. We can have multiple projects here and they can all belong to one particular application. So this entire training can be jarred together. So multiple classes can be present in a jar format, okay, which is Java archive. And this is nothing but a way of saying things. Jar files are essentially WinZip files. They are zip files, nothing else. So if that is the case and we have multiple projects, all right, let's say, as we have shown here for training. So if you have multiple projects and they all are grouped together, okay, so if that is the case, I mean, the classes which you discussed can be accessed from other packages as well, and in that case that is an internal client. But external client is like, say if I write my code and someone has to use this training API for their own implementation, okay, so what we do, we will put it as a jar and we'll give it to them. We'll export it as a jar and give it to them. So if they use it, I mean, they can import the classes and start using it. And like say we provided a like way to access it. Maybe the actual implementation has to be decided from the application which is importing it. So maybe the implementation which is out here in training project is all using the interfaces, okay, but in the class which is there, the external class, it's actually implementing that interface. So that is also possible, and that is how JPA, Java Persistence API works. So JPA is just an API which with blank and with abstract and interfaces, with abstract classes and interfaces, and the actual implementation is provided by Hibernate or any other JP providers. So this is what I meant by internal slash external. Now Java, as we know, doesn't have the multiple inheritance concept, right? So what that means is like, say I had the option that this particular employee, or say super employee we had discussed, right? So we have super employee which extends employee. Now it extends employee and it could have extended some other classes as well. Maybe super employee also extends, super employee is also a board member, and I have a separate class for board member. So ideally, if Java would have given me an option, and now we have obviously discussed before that why this is not allowed in Java. But say if you have an option like this, extends board member, this is giving an error. Why? Because you cannot import two classes. Okay, so Java has restricted us that we can only import one class. So what we can do, we can create another interface and implement that interface. Okay, maybe so like say I implement I board member if that is the requirement, and this I board member could have, and this is giving me error because I have not created this particular interface yet. So I interface could have the things which we're expecting for the board members defined there, and by default super employee will start also implementing it and have those similar features as well. So in a way you can say that this is a workaround for multiple inheritance which Java provides to us. So in a way this also makes up for the multiple inheritance concept which is lacking in Java. A class can implement any number of interfaces. In effect, using interfaces gives us the benefit of multiple inheritance sans, that is minus the problems which multiple inheritance brings. Okay, now interfaces can be used for reference data types, however they cannot be used to instantiate classes. So the thing is, interface is just a contract, right? So I cannot go here and say, for an example, where are we using it? Say for an example here. Okay, now say here I can't go and write I employee, okay, emp1 is equal to new I employee. This is not possible. Okay, and this is a separate thing. This is what I was talking about in like inner classes. But ideally if I remove this, I cannot create objects like this. Even the you will get compiler error saying cannot instantiate the type I employee. So we can only instantiate using new operator. We can only instantiate the class, okay, to create objects, but we cannot instantiate interfaces. All right. So interfaces cannot be instantiated, but interfaces can be used for reference data type. So it can actually refer to employee object, okay, and control space will give you the options which are available, and then you can select this new employee is there, right? So it can refer to to the actual objects, but so it can be reference data type, but you cannot instantiate it as such. Now say if you implement it like this, I employee emp1 and then give it new employee, so this has access to this reference data type, has access to everything which is there in iEmployee interface, but not which is there in employee object. So use reference data type wisely. If you have a requirement of getting the employee name, and this employee name will not be visible in this iEmployee reference data type, because that is a reference type iEmployee, and now iEmployee is only referring to whatever is out there in iEmployee interface definition. So if you go here, the things which is visible is only calculate salary method. Apart from that, I can't do anything. And if you do control space, you're asking for Eclipse to give you options. They are by default whatever is in the object class. But if you see here, only one method is visible. So this gives you the flexibility, and obviously, wherever you have to required, use the interface as the reference data type. But make sure that if you require for say employee, you want to get the employee name. Obviously, you cannot use the interface, right? So that is what is meant by what we have defined here. So interfaces can be used for reference data types, however they cannot be used to instantiate classes. An interface is created with the following types modifier, which we discussed. This is how it is. So so you see public interface iEmployee, and that is what is out here. Public is nothing but modifier, interface is the keyword, and then the actual name, and whatever you want to write, constants or method signatures. So here you have methods. You can also define constant, like say private, not private. Everything is by default public. So in an interface, so public string pi. Okay, so I'll give the value of pi here. The value of pi equal to 3.14. This is very much possible. So you can either define the actual methods, you can define constants. Okay, so yeah. Now methods in an interface, as I told you, are by default public. An interface can extend other interfaces with the following syntax. So we have given the option of inheritance even in the interfaces. So like say I board member. So for example, I define an interface I board member, right? So let's go there and define it. Okay, now this I board member interface which I have written, that can extend other interfaces as well. For an example, it can extend this is possible. Your one interface can extend other interfaces. Oh, sorry, I put it as class. So that was the reason it's coming out like this. So say one interface is extending other one. So for as far as classes is concerned, that could have only extended other classes. So this interface I board member can extend I employee. So similarly, we can have multiple inheritance, not multiple inheritance, but inheritance concept in case of interfaces as well. And if required, we can do that. Okay. So this is all about multiple inheritance. Obviously, any class which implements sub-interface will have to implement each of the methods contained in its super interfaces. So what it means is that if, say, a super employee implements iBoard member, so it has to by default implement everything which is there in iEmployee interface as well, not only in iBoard member. So that is a definition which is defined here. And interface can be public or friendly. And when I mean friendly, interface can be public. Friendly means that you remove it. Okay, that essentially means that it is by default it is at the package level. So this interface is accessible within this particular package, but not outside it. You make it as public using import, you can access the same interface outside this package as well. And anyways, if you mark it as private, it cannot be accessed. So I just wanted to deal with that. All methods and interface are default, abstract, and public. So what it means is that we only give the definition, like the way which we discussed about calculate salary, right? So calculate salary is there, but what have you defined? So in calculate salary, you have defined about uh, you have defined the designation number, you have defined the return type, okay, but you have not defined the actual implementation of how to calculate salary. So what is that? That means that it by default is an abstract. And what happens with abstract? So if you extend an abstract class and you do not, and the Java compiler by default forces you to implement that particular method, which is abstract, okay. Now if you do not implement that, then your class by default remains abstract. So that kind of thing is there, and that is possible here also. So all methods and interface are default abstract, are by default abstract and public, okay. Static, finite, private, and protected cannot be used with the method which is defined in the interface. So it cannot be static, it cannot be finite, because it has to be implemented. Its behavior can change. You can increase or decrease access modifications. So all those things are possible, okay. Now, and that's, I mean, if you make it as a market as private, so if it is marked as private, any other class will not be able to implement it, right? So there is no point of having that guarantee, that contract which is an interface. So that's why Java doesn't allow static, final, private, and protected. Now all variables which we discussed, the constants, the pi constant, I mean, it is public, it is static, and final by default. So even if you don't write, it is public, static, final by default. So what that means is that even if you do not create the classes which implement it, they can refer to such constant even without creating an instance of itself. So that is what is meant by static. Final means is that once we define the value of pi as 3.14, other classes cannot change the value for that particular uh, uh, attribute, that particular constant from to something else, okay. Private and protected cannot be used. So this is all about interfaces, okay. And anyways, we discussed about packages. So it's pretty much straightforward. What you do is that you go out today and try to implement like say few of the things like which we discussed, and then it will become very very clear to you. And for assignment, we have like a different kind of assignments today. We're just discussing about things about, like say, I just want you to not to write some programs as of now, but deal about some basic concepts. So there's one extended pro class from a different package, and then write a program using it, differentiate between abstract classes and Java. Then there are two interfaces which I want you to understand the difference between, and then one program using interfaces. So it depends on you, like how you want to use it, but my idea is that you just write your own interface, define methods like I did here, I employ, and then you write employ which implements it, then you write a main method to actually run it. So if you do it in this way, it's going to work out. I mean, you'll be able to understand it fine. That's why I do not give any specific definition as well, that I want the Fibonacci number or say checking palindrome or anything else, because right now I just don't want you to get bogged down by it. I just want you to play around with the concept as such, and do it like learn it on the go types. Once you're able to do it, in the next class you'll find assignments related to interfaces and packages as well, okay. Now please go through it and start working on the questions. One part I think which I missed to touch upon is in packages. Here we have the foundation packages which are defined. So Java JDK, when you say JDK, right, Java Development Kit, and it provides us with lot of opportunities, right? So it provides us with lot of opportunity in the sense that it itself implements many of the common functionalities. The libraries, the class libraries, are implemented by the JDK folks themselves. So there are some other packages from their end, and it is very important. You'll see that that you will use it very often. So hash table or say date, was date object say is used a lot in Java, and anywhere wherever you need the created date, you need the date, right? So that is there in java.util package. Java.io is another package which has all the classes related to input output. So whenever you think that you have to read and write data somewhere, uh, the classes, and read and write data not in the database, because in databases you have like a lot of abstractions. At the last it is only like input output only, but that is not visible to you. So, but in general, if you want to write a program to read a particular file and read the contents of it and print it out on the UI, then in that case, the classes which you will mostly use is java.io, java.awt. So Java, if you see, I mean, right now the web pages which are developed, most of them are not using Java tech. I mean, they're using Java technologies, the technologies which are related to Java, but not exactly core Java. But Java provides you, right? So Java provides that opportunity. So it has this java.awt, which provides you the features, the classes which you can use for implementing the graphical user interface. Okay, and then it can serve on the UI as well. And I have seen one or two sites which use applets. So applets and AWT, so they are related. So it's not that they are not used. So Java.awt and Java.applet are used for UI itself, and they're used in enterprise applications. They're used by banks as well. But I mean, you have to use it, and that is not very common as such. Then Java.net. So this is also for networking. So if you want to open a port in your computer for a particular port number, you want to do that socket programming, and that is required for, like, say, printer interface. You want to write a program which connects to a particular printer. Then in that case, you have to use a classes which are there in Java.net. And these are things which are already implemented by Java guys, tested thousands of times, because many applications around the world use it. So they're pretty much stable APIs. If sometimes a bug comes, you report it to Java people and they fix it in the next release. So that's how it goes. But these are just 5 or 6 foundation packages which you'll use many times in your exercises and also going forward. So this is what we had for today's class. If you have any questions, then you can ask. Okay, so one question which I've got is about static. So static is another keyword. Say employee class is there, right? So employee class, to access EMP name. I mean, you cannot access using the employee name itself. So what, when you write, say something like, say, employee EMP is equal to new employee. So once you write like that, okay. Now once you write like that, what happens is that Java allocates some memory for your class. Now using that, you can access EMP name, etc. But say some of the attributes are common for all the classes. Like, say, all the employee classes will have type as EMP. So I can define my type here. Say public static, and this is required for saving the database. So public static string type as emp underscore type. So emp underscore type. Yeah. So that is the case, and I made a mistake here. So that is the case. Uh, okay. So that is the case. What this means is that this is loaded only once. So all this, wherever you mark as static, so there is some metadata stored for classes as well, right? So whenever that class is loaded for the first time, we store this value as the metadata for that particular class. Why? Because it is marked as static, and then this is accessible across all the classes. So every time you create a new instance, this thing will not be created per instance. It is created only once when the class is loaded as such. Okay. So if you refer here, you can actually refer using emp.type, because Java gives that flexibility, but without even creating the object, since it is loaded the first time itself. When the class definition is loaded, not even when the object is created, when the class definition is loaded in the memory, at that time itself, Java will create this value, will store this value for you. So you can access it using just employee name. Okay, so employee dot type. So it is accessible like this. So if you want to print, you can do say sysout. You write sysout, then do control space. Java this Eclipse replaces with system.out.println, and then you write say whatever is out here, like, say, employee dot type. So so you get MP underscore type, right? So that's how it is. So I mean, static generally means that you have one copy per class. It is only loaded once and then used across. Even if you create like say hundreds of objects, this value is not going to change. This value is going to remain the same. Okay. So that is what is meant by static. Any other questions?
Can you tell the interfaces where you created the interface type, reference type variable and assign it object reference?
Yeah, this is where it is. So basically,
Ye-
interface can refer to the actual objects, and then the way in which you can use the actual employee object, right? Like, say if I'm using employee class here to refer to it, similarly,
Uh-huh.
I can use the interface as well. So the reason why this is being done is, say an employee can refer to, as I was discussing about employee or contractor or subcontractor, and they can all implement I employee, right? So in that case, what will happen is, say in the DO layer, you want to write a method to calculate salary. Okay, so if you have written a method to calculate salary, say public uh, double, then say calculate salary. Okay, now this will be invoked by other APIs. So here what you're expecting is say an interface. Why? Because I mean, otherwise you'll have to write different classes for different APIs, one catering to employee, one catering to contractor, one catering to uh, subcontractor, and then here you can write using like say return emp dot get salary or maybe calculate salary. So that thing can be is possible, it can be done. So your employee do class as such is not worried about the actual implementation for I employee or the interface which you defined. It just knows that whenever it has to calculate salary, it has to expect a reference data type of type I employee of this particular interface, and then whenever you calculate salary, the appropriate method will be called. Now the actual object which is being passed here this I employee as such, it can be anything. It can be of the type employee object, employee class, or it can be the type contractor, subcontractor. But when the actual when you implement it out here, and those details are not required. So that's why we have this, because I mean the implementation is same for every class. So that's why we can just refer using the reference data type which is pointing to an interface, and then use it across our programs. So that's how we use it for reference data types.
Um, but isn't the calculate salary in I employee itself?
I employees see method names are same because we're just calculating salary, right? So it's not that they're both referring to the same stuff. So say
No.
you can change it. You can just say calculate salary for employee. Okay, or
No, what I was saying is the purpose of I employee was there for calculating, and then all the classes will implement it so that they can have their own format for calculating.
right. So see, I employee will
So,
go and create. Okay, when we're getting confused with the method name which is here. Now say let's not name it calculate salary. I was just giving you for an example. Say update salary in the DB. That is the use of this particular class employee do. So
okay.
that's the reason it is called for. So say I'll get the salary from here. Say double salary, and then make a JDBC connection and save this data whatever is out here uh, in the database. So that was the actual intention. I just use the same name because I mean you can use the same name, that's not a problem, from different classes.
Okay.
So here it is having calculate salary, but here if you see this employee DO as such, it is using the update salary in DB API. I mean the name is changed. Even if you have the same name, I mean it is belonging to that particular class, right? So it doesn't matter. So I mean it works in that way that the calculate salary in employee DO can be same as calculate salary in I employee interface, and there it can do slightly different work. Here it can mean slightly different thing. So such things are possible as well. So when you say update, I can define a method here in I employee, say update salary, and what it does is that employee object for that particular month, say for Diwali there is a bonus, so you add 10 rupees. So that kind of what do you say update salary call can be there, which can be called from other applications or from other packages depending on the usage. Okay, so that is very much possible. So update salary can be there, which means update salary, update the value in that particular object. Update salary can be there in the employee DO, which means update the salary in the database. So, the method names can be seen. There is no problem with that.
But what actually will I employee emp will hold the parameter?
It will refer to the object which you want to refer it to. So say employee DO, wherever you are referring it, if you have if the object is employee, it will be referring to employee object. If you are referring to say contractor object, it will refer to contractor object. So say let me create another class here. So that reference data type refers only to its own type, right? So it will only be referring to I employee object type, so I employee reference data type. Say we have contractor which extends employee, and we have employee here which implements I employee. So if that is the case, and not like say extend it, let's make it simple. We'll only implement it. And then let's write a test class here. So say you have an I employee interface which is referring to either a new employee, or you have another reference data type emp1 which is referring to contractor. So you have two things here, and then say if you are making an instance of employee DO, and calculates say I think it was update salary in DB, then you can pass it EMP. If you pass it EMP, then it is actually referring to the employee object. But the only thing which you can do from here is say emp.get salary, which actually will invoke like what are API. So if you invoke like say emp dot what is there in iEmployee has only one API as of now, calculate salary. So if you do emp dot calculate salary in this particular case, like say here, calculate salary. So this particular call is going to call the calculate salary API, which implementation would have provided in the employee class. Okay. Now if I go here and do say calculate salary call here for emp1, okay, emp1 dot calculate salary. So if I do that particular call here, that is essentially this reference data type is referring to contractor object. So it will go and implement like whatever you have defined in this particular contractor class. Okay, so here if you see, this is just a reference data type emp or emp1. The actual object is defined on the right hand side, and whenever you call the method etc, it calls on the actual class to which it's referring to. And when you say update salary in DB on the employee DO object, and you pass emp reference data type, it can refer to employee, contractor, to any classes which implement it. It depends on the reference and the definition which you have put here, that whether it refers to employee class or whether it refers to contractor class, it can differ. The only thing which is in common is that it has to be it has to implement that particular iEmployee interface. Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Any other questions? Kirti, if you're getting an error, please drop me an email. I'll try to run it on my end and see why it is giving the error. Okay, Okay, guys, then thanks a lot for your participation and happy Diwali. I'll send you all the recordings as well. Thanks a lot.